welcome back to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And okay, so can't be of much help to Era for now, considering our mental state. So let's try and collect our heads and see if we can help anybody else.
I just
Yeah,
keep
and
telling...
collect the heads of the fallen, too.
I just keep telling myself, Cloud, it can't get any worse from here. It can't get any worse from here.
Well, Cloud should stop telling that to himself, otherwise he's going to kill everybody.
Look. As long as Sephiroth stays dead, we're all cool and fine. I apologize to any newcomers who probably don't know why I've been going on about this whole Sephiroth is evil when I mentioned that he was in reality a hero at some point, but you'll just have to wait until Remake Part 2 for me to explain that.
Have we already talked about a problem some people have in that this game assumes you played the original?
I touched a bit lightly.
Oh, you mean... Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah, I guess.
I touched a bit lightly on it, but I guess now's a good time to bring it up. Yes, in a lot of ways, this remake is best enjoyed if you have played the original 7. And, okay, I'll just say right now, regarding Sephiroth, if you haven't played the original or don't know about the original, you're going to be confused, because like I said before, yes, this game brings up Sephiroth, shows that he's evil, but then really the only thing we hear in context aside from anyone who's not Cloud is about how Sephiroth is a hero. And I hate to say it, folks, if you're thinking that, well, because we're focusing more on Sephiroth in this part, we're going to get that proper Nibelheim origin story, yeah, no, they don't. So
it will probably still be the like prologue of the next part.
I will say this has left a lot of people reasonably confused, and I will say this, I completely understand. For anyone
to be fair, I mean, confusion isn't necessarily a bad thing. The idea is to entice confusion so that it makes you, okay, in order to figure out this, I have to buy the next part. Like confusion isn't necessarily a bad thing.
That would be fine, but let's also take into consideration, and I'm not going to spoil what it is, but take into consideration how this game ends, and you can see why people would argue that we should have known more about Sephiroth, considering how this game ends. But again, more for later here. But yeah, it's like I said, I do love this remake, but I'm speaking as someone who's played the original 7. Now, the way the game starts off, it's great for newcomers here and there. It just mainly replays a lot of the story but adds in new stuff. However, later in the game, it will become quite clear that unless you play or know how the original 7 goes, you're going to be confused, and chances are you might be quite in the dark. This is kind of a shame for people who wanted to play the remake as, you know, a substitution for the 7, because, okay, I love the original 7, but I won't deny that it is outdated in, like, a lot of areas. The idea of a remake...
This guy are sick.
That's a typo, Dwibs.
I'm
thinking he's talking about more like some plot points that are just, taken for granted, that could have been expanded a bit.
Not only that, there can be a lot of cryptic stuff from that, it being PlayStation era.
The fact that Vincent is an optional character, even though everything involving his story is incredibly important,
at some point he was even considered to be cut away entirely.
And don't even get me started on how
no sense whatsoever.
And don't even get me started on how needlessly complicated it is getting Yuffie onto your party. Unless you know the exact right inputs, you ain't getting her. And as much
Trial and error, Drova. That's literally it.
Well, isn't it like, you try and get her once, and like if you get it wrong, it's done forever?
No, she's not permanently missable in that
Considering Wutai is in much greater focus right from the beginning, and it's safe to assume that Yuffie and Vincent are going to be obligatory to recruit.
It's also good for the sake of pacing and to be less stressful, because if they put them to be original, they will have to be programmed in a specific way. Instead, if they're mandatory, they're literally plot points, so they can schedule the pacing of the parts and how each story session is programmed in a very specific way. I'm still confident that even mandatorily, Yuffie will still show up before Junon, because pacing, no matter what happens in the next part, pacing-wise, she's ideal to be the new character introduced before going into Junon. And obviously, considering what happens at the end of this part, one of the main attractions of the beginning of part 2 will be seeing how Red 13 properly plays, before the hacking thing, Drova.
Yeah. I guess
and even then, Red 13's mechanics were made specifically for NPC purposes, so they're not fully fleshed out. All.
Well, that's the thing, though.
Part to properly.
That's the thing, though. You can. That's the thing, though. You can actually technically play as Red 13 if you play around with the save files a bit. It's unorthodox, but hey,
most unorthodox actually. Again, pacing-wise, it just makes sense to have youth show up at that particular point.
In terms of
we were meant to see how long they plan to actually make part 2. Like I mentioned in the previous part, Nomura and his team, well, they're already working on it. They already pretty much said that ever since the game in the first part is gone gold, they already immediately started working on the second part. And considering that this is not a traditional modern game for service, so it doesn't have the plan attached to it, like a season pass or anything, they simply once released just let it go and moving on to the next part immediately, which is for the better, honestly.
In a sense.
So I'm confident we will be seeing it relatively sooner, depending how Square Enix actually managed to get through the also current crisis that's currently happening. Ironic enough, the crisis is not happening just in universe, but out of there.
Well, again. It's almost as ironic as Resident Evil 3 Remake coming out right and about here and there.
Oh, by the way, since considering what's going on, a minor fact about the seahorse enemy that show up in this particular part of the dungeon that we just seen fighting. My friend that works at the wiki, the Italian wiki, actually started compiling the monster pages, and he sent me a more, close-up version of the model. Apparently, they reworked the model of the seahorse in order to show that it's actually a twisted human being, an ex-experiment from Shinra.
Wow! Okay.
All right, let's fry these guys.
Okay,
I'll try to send you a picture later, Jova.
That is literally Bioshock levels of mutation and terror.
I'm working also to Resident Evil in that kind of sense. Remember how Pedro wanted for the equivalent of the end of these two to Hojo transformation to be more similar to the ones in Resident Evil, like get the same thought process,
Oh boy, Square's going to have a field day with that boss fight.
Honestly, before this remake came out, I was skeptical in seeing how the game would have tackled some fights in the original. I wasn't sure they would have been transplanted well here, but considering what we did with the fights that happened in this first part, I'm confident with any monster and any boss that was in the original game can easily be transplanted in this remake project with no real problem.
Cloud took a giant explosion to the face and somehow lived.
Remember, Dwibs, cool guys don't even look at them.
So, Tia, I'm curious. What? Oh, sorry. Go on, Pedro.
It's not that hard to. It just takes some imagination and effort.
Imagination.
So, Tia, what is your favorite fight in particular? If it's a spoilery one, then
Of this game. Oh.
My favorite fight.
It's the. I think it's the penultimate boss fight in chapter. Well, because we played on the original, I guess I can spoil it. Rufus.
Rufus. He has quite the special spin. As for you, Pedro?
My favorite fight is the very final boss, actually.
Yeah.
It's both like it's everything. It's the spectacle. The music is orgasmic. It's like everything. It's just a fantastic final boss.
Not gonna lie,
to fight.
Not gonna lie, that particular final boss is part of the reason why I can actually consider this its own game. Let's just say, for those of you who played the original, you're in for quite a surprise of how this particular part ends. Well, and when I say part, I mean this game as a whole.
There's also an interesting thing, going back to the Ultimate Menu thing, there's also an interesting thing that I found that Amaguchi already says that they do intend to implement the world map in some kind of way, and they're right now trying to figure out specifically how they're going to implement it. Most likely, they'll either take some cues from Final Fantasy 15, or they'll take the Dragon Quest 11 and Final Fantasy 12 approach, which is have the world be segmented in a way that gives the feeling of having an overworld where you can explore and all, which you can, without necessarily being open. Like basically create something like what 5 12 in Dragon Quest 11 did.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
so we got these bozos again.
Yep. Back to our talk about the old 7. I do wonder, like, do you think that optional party members are a thing that are best left in the past, or about a customization that modern RPGs could use?
Depends. To me, honestly, it depends ultimately on how the game is implemented. Honestly, for a game like this, no, if to be honest, because of the way it's constructed, with how the cutscenes are implemented, the dungeon, navigation, and all, it poses, like I said, a bit of a difficult in terms of how to properly implement without having to stress too much on the development and the pacing of the game. Otherwise, we might get potentially a bit of a clashing situation similar to how you guys.
Oh God, back again, really?
And they have the problem is that they have a reinforcement now, a giant and an Under the Giant-esque guy.
Oh boy. But yeah, you raised a good point. Not only that, but optional player members can make, studying the lore of a franchise incredibly annoying. Case in point.
For a more traditional RPG, like, say, Persona, I can actually dig that, for example, because of the way it can be implemented. Mind you, I'm saying Persona mostly because it's something that's more recognizable, but I'm including the Mega 10 franchise as a whole. Persona has the thing that it's working on a sort of a time limit, due to its nature.
Grunty Bandit, you do know it's a bad idea to turn your back on some of the magical powers, don't you?
That the idea is that if it has a more simpler structure and all, and the combat too, I can understand that. Although,
right, let's play Rearrange the Bodies
again. One thing with the original always had me interested in the fact that you can get to weapons for Vincent as soon as you get to Calm, even though it makes literally no sense whatsoever.
Cute.
That's enough body rearranging. Unfortunately, there's not enough for me to arrange them into an L for losers.
Yeah.
How about an A for Avalanche?
Nah, that's too obvious. Besides, they'll find us where they'll interrogate them when they wake up, and they'll tell us where we were, and that'll get them closer to finding us.
Keep also in mind, Jova, the optional party members for Final Fantasy have been like an experiment, nothing more, because aside from 7, only 6 really had them.
9.
They're not actually, no. Remember, Jova, Quina is not optional.
What?
If you don't get her in this one, she will be obligatory to progress in this too.
Yeah.
Oh, I keep forgetting that.
She's actually required to find fossil Ruru.
Yeah.
Huh. Why did I remember her as an optional one? Probably because I got her.
Because it's optional technically just in this one.
Well, the truth of the matter, Job, is that Queen is not exactly a very important character in the grand scheme of things.
But she's an incredibly overpowered one.
She's super broken in combat, but story-wise she's used for comic relief.
Also.
So
hang on, guys. I got sorry, it's out the way. Barrier!
Yeah.
Because, Carla's a barrier now.
Yeah. So you're telling me that Queen of Ken is essentially the Yuffie of the Final Fantasy IX roster.
Keep those gloves up.
It had a more elaborate story going on if you went with her to Wutai. Queen's idea to become like the master cook is just plain poor. The game, even the game itself, doesn't seem to care about her.
I think
there are some good morals here and there, but they're just put there just to give at least a minimal decent sense to the character. And they can easily be assumed to resume to just be a good person, explore the world, and learn from it, and being humble and all. But again, it's played for laughs, and nevertheless.
Yeah, my main point with comparing her to Yuffie is like, well, yeah, Yuffie's story can get a lot more intricate when you bring in the Wutai stuff, but even with that Wutai stuff, in the end, it's kind of a rather self-contained thing, since, yeah, Wutai is mentioned a lot as, the passing of the war and whatnot. but we don't really get much more than, just that. And also, oh, maybe Yuffie will help bring honor back to her village after her little
Yeah, for a second I thought those guys were more goons when I first walked up.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, now I know. After Yuffie's battle gauntlet, where she has to herself go up throughout the palace.
Oh, hey guys, we're back at the playground.
Playtime is over?
Literally.
You're
Yes.
alive.
Yes, Weimer.
Is the guy who was relevant for the tour that Tifa gave when he gave you a couple of side quests.
I wish I knew. Sorry.
Okay, gotta give it to Square. The next gen beards are actually way better looking than most PS4 games.
I know, right?
I mean, 15's beards were okay.
They were okay, but not as good as these.
It's an unfortunate problem that plagues the vast majority of the games. It seems that for most of the engines, rendering hair technology is a bit difficult, particularly for the.
This is one reason why people love Unreal Engine 4, because that's an engine that kind of works to try and, circumvent the issue of hair here. It's not perfect, but by God, Unreal probably has some of the best hair particles
at the moment.
Well, I mean, Cloud needs to let out his anger.
I know, right?
Yeah. Look, I'm shop.
Thank you.
You're telling me.
Did this guy go out? Did this guy have to just say, wait? I know we need to evacuate, but I gotta get in my shop and carry out all my items and signage and put them all on gear.
To be honest, he only could take only so much. So.
Yeah, as we see by his inventory.
It's a remix of the calm theme, the more homely town theme.
Which doesn't really suit Midgar, because Midgar's not exactly a homely place,
Not
is it?
looking very homely anymore.
It's there to, try to give more comfort to these people. I can get why in Universe we're using this tool in this specific moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Music helps.
Time to get more mega potions. Shit, that took almost all my gil.
Because the equipment guy may actually have something that may interest you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a park bench for us to sit on. Oh, very nice.
You seem to rest a lot.
Trust
Well,
me, Tifa.
all this fighting takes a lot out of a guy.
Allow me. Trust me, Tifa. In my line of work, rest can come very importantly.
Sector 7, huh? Yeah. Left a few things behind. You see. I know it's not much, but it's all I got.
Thanks, David Lodge.
Let's see what you got.
But first, let's see if we can sell him some stuff. Yeah, don't need the talisman. These materia, I don't think I really used these all that much.
Oh, subversion materia. Hollywood must love that.
Yeah, and now I've subverted the materia for body.
But you subverted the expectation by not selling it and selling something else instead.
So that makes it immediately brilliant.
How many well are we?
If this game were trying to be subversive, Cloud would probably go on that thingy mission, but then at the end of it, he'll just toss his sword into a Marco Lake
and say,
walk away.
Off.
Well, either that or he just walk off, leave everyone behind, and live out the rest of his days swinging on a hammock in the.
I don't know, Dwibs. That
You're
weapon
kind
You're kind of useful right now.
I know, right?
Which actually gives me a good thing to ask. It's not immediately this point that we're pretty close, so I'm curious, Pedro. What do you think on how... Oh, the subversion was real. So what do you think on how...
Yeah, I subverted your expectations in actually keeping the subversion materia.
So
go ahead, dear.
How do you think they... How do you like personally how they handled the more close and personal weapons for Barrett?
This is all I was
I think they look pretty great. I mean, When it comes to Barrett, I never use the close range weapons because it like when it comes to Barrett, I really depend on him to be the long range physical fighter.
You know,
All right. Now it's time for now it's time for Big Bertha.
You know what'd be nice to give Barrett? Hey, you know what'd be nice to give Barrett?
What?
A Lancer. Seriously, a Lancer would come so in handy for him.
Anyway, the ability that the Big Bertha actually brings is very useful. It's the equivalent of the Angar Max limit break he had in the original. So if you use both ATBs, you can inflict a lot of damage to a staggered enemy.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Now I don't have enough SP, so
You know,
nah,
the VII Remake really is a game of many miracles. Not only does it bring in so many nice tropes and new trials here and there, but it also takes stuff from Final Fantasy XIII and makes it so that people like them. Tell me that's not a miracle.
Well, again, like you said, Joe, considering how it's constructed and all, this is ultimately, to me, what 13 should have been.
And it's interesting as well because the guy who directed that trilogy is a co-director here.
Well,
it
we
makes
already
sense.
explained
You know,
it.
he was involved in the original seven.
He was only for the cutscene. He's only for cutscenes though, and he doesn't have direct control. Like he doesn't have complete control. He still has to do what Nomura tells him.
If the script tells Cloud to talk to Tifa, Toriyama cannot go like, and then they kissed, you know?
Yeah. So, but whereas in 13 trilogy, it's basically Toriyama Unchained, which is the last thing anyone ever wants.
Well, I guess that depends. Do you want Toriyama Unchained or do you want the Jiba Unchained? If you like one but not the other, great. If you don't like either, then
Dwibs, technically, Nojima has never been entirely unchained because he has to abide by what stories either Sakaguchi, Kitase, or anyone else comes up with, because he's only a script writer. He's not a story writer.
Well, we'll see. Anyway, we'll continue on with our attempts to help people recover from this horrific tragedy, deliberate tragedy, in the next part.
Yeah.
See ya.
See ya.
See ya.